In this video, we're going to talk about the EIDL grant for $10,000. That's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And we're going to talk about where is the $10,000 and why is the SBA not taking new applications. But before we do, if this is your first time at our channel or you haven't subscribed, click on the subscribe button at the bottom. My name is Travis Sickle, Certified Financial Planner, helping you reach your financial goals. So we heard a lot about the EIDL grant and the $10,000 advance that was quickly changed by the SBA to be $1,000 times the amount of employees that you had. So if you only have 10 employees, then you got the 10,000. But if you had less, you didn't get the full 10,000. Now I want to start from the beginning so you can see the text that everybody is talking about on the 10,000. And then I'm going to show you a whole bunch of other information, just like I do in all my other videos. So you can see the source, you can see what I'm reading and put it together for yourself. So let's start with the CARES Act that was signed into law on March 27th, because that's where it all starts. So if we're reading the text, it says that in the amount requested by such applicant to such applicant within 3 days after the administrator receives an application from such applicant. So if you've heard of the 3-day advance, that's what it's talking about, that the SBA only has to receive your application and then get you the money within 3 days. And the amount of that advance provided under this subsection shall not be more than $10,000. Now, I've read this a few times, and if you reread it, it is clear that if you apply for $10,000 or more, the advance should be $10,000. And who determines that? You, the applicant, because it says it right there, in the amount requested by such applicant within 3 days, and it's $10,000. Nowhere did I read that the SBA has any authority to give you anything less than $10,000 as the advance. And that is the intent of what the CARES Act says. And at some point, the SBA decided to change it to $1,000 and they put it on their website. And I've called the SBA a lot to figure out what's going on. And all they can do is refer to the website. Well, the last I checked, the website is not the law, but the CARES Act is. So I really understand where the SBA can make that decision to only do $1,000. Because according to the CARES Act, there are 5 uses for the EIDL grant for the $10,000. And that is A, providing sick leave to employees unable to work due to the direct effect of COVID-19. B, maintaining payroll to employees during business disruptions or substantial slowdowns, which is just like the Paycheck Protection Program. And C, meeting increased costs to obtain materials. D, making mortgage payments or rent payments. And E, repaying obligations that cannot be met due to revenue losses. So I can't understand why they went the route of doing it, multiplying it by the amount of employees that you had up to $10,000. It just doesn't make any sense. It's a completely different program than the Paycheck Protection Program. And the Paycheck Protection Program is meant to help with paychecks, not the EIDL grant. It has so much more to it than just paychecks. Now, if you go to the SBA's website right now, I don't think you can find anything that's referencing the $1,000 per employee. I don't know if they took that down or if it's just in a completely different section. But if you do go to the EIDL grant section of the SBA's website, it still says this loan advance will provide up to $10,000 of economic relief to businesses that are currently experiencing temporary difficulties. Now, one of the reasons that I heard the SBA did this is so everyone gets a little piece of the pie, a little bit of the money, because there's not a lot of money to go around or not enough money, clearly, because they had 2 rounds of this funding already. But what also doesn't make sense is there's a report that shows the loans from the EIDL grant going out. And if you look at this report, and I'll pull it up on the screen, I'll put a link in the description at the bottom, but loans approved was 38,984. These are the loans, not the grants. So they're actually processing the grant money and the loan money at the same time. But if there's not enough money to go around, then why didn't they just stick to the grant rather than going over to the loan side of it? Because if you look right up there at the top, Alaska got approved for 8 applications for $3.1 million. Well, that's a lot more than $10,000 per small business. And I get that they're really backed up. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said that the SBA has processed more than 14 years worth of loans in less than 14 days. That's a lot of loans. But what doesn't make any sense is that they're processing these grants, but they're also having time to do the loans. So that means that they're going through the complete application, not just receiving the application to put the $10,000 advance out. So the SBA decided that they were only going to give the $1,000 per employee up to the $10,000, and then they decided on their own accord to close the program to new applicants. Now, meanwhile, they have the second round of the CARES Act, which is called the Paycheck Protection Program and Healthcare Enhancement Act. And that was the additional $60 billion of the EIDL grant and the loans. So $10 billion was for the grant and the additional $50 billion was for the loans. But what doesn't make any sense is they didn't open it back up, and they added the agricultural small businesses that were left out in the first round of the EIDL grant, but the program isn't open, so they didn't even have a shot to apply for it. And if you haven't seen it yet, there's a letter from Congress that highlights everything that I just talked about. And it says that under the CARES Act, emergency EIDL grants were to be made in the amounts of up to $10,000 within 3 days of receiving an application. However, SBA has taken much longer to disperse funds to businesses. And they also asked that businesses that had previously received reduced grants because they had fewer than 10 employees should receive the full amount. And going forward, new applicants should receive the full awards as well, regardless of their size, because that was the intent. And with the agricultural businesses coming into the picture, they were just left out in the cold. And it says that now farms and agricultural enterprises under 500 employees have been made eligible recipients for the EIDLs and emergency EIDL grants. Given that so many of our small producers and agricultural small businesses need urgent assistance, SBA must immediately update its guidance and application form to clarify this new eligibility. And what makes it the most challenging of all, I know that there were a lot of small businesses out there that were making the decision whether or not they should apply to the PPP program or the EIDL grant because of how much money or assistance that they really needed. And there was a bit of overlap with the paycheck portion to the EIDL grant. So if you applied for the EIDL grant and you needed more than just $1,000 or 1,000 times the amount of employees that you had to get by, then you might have been better off at also applying for the PPP loan. But if you didn't get into that program and you're still struggling to get those funds, then your business is really at risk. And what's really confusing about all of this is that the SBA is the Small Business Administration. They administer things. They don't make the laws. Congress does. So if Congress is telling the SBA what to do, the SBA should comply and they should do $10,000 grants and open up the application again. And even if they can't get to all the applications, they should open it up because they have no idea on how many small businesses need that emergency money. And that is the update on the EIDL grant. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and leave your comments down at the bottom.